welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming, everybody. Definitely.
So we went to high school together, and I don't
Yep.
actually remember being in high school with you, which is
Okay.
probably more of a testament to my bad memory than anything about you.
No worries.
So just tell us, have you always been political? What made you decide to run for office?
I've always been like intrigued with it since I was a little kid. It was always something I strived in and did well in school. So history was always one of my strong suits, and I didn't have a lot of strong suits going into school, so I had to focus on the really good ones. So I've always followed it, and I've always been like one of the people on the outside watching it and ranting about it and not being happy with what it was doing. And it kind of hit me like, you can sit here and you can talk all you want, or you can step up and you can try to make change and be the change that you want to see. So that's basically was the initiative to get me to go. And obviously, I don't have to tell this room that we're not happy with how we're represented. No one is. And we need people that are going to listen to people and focus on what's going on in our communities and make that the forefront of what we need to do.
Yeah, we actually sat down together a few months ago in my studio. We just had like a little bit of a one-on-one. And one of the most striking and memorable things that I remember from that conversation was that you said that a few dozen people had actually changed their registration from Republican to Democrat to vote for you in the primary.
Yes.
After such a polarizing election last year, can you speak to a little bit about why maybe you think that is?
Well, I think like one of the biggest things too is that like I'm from here, so people in the community know me. I've known the people in this community for 30 plus years, and we have repertoire and we have established relationships together. So when I went to go talk to some of these people, like I got this big list that was all the independents that were on the west side of the canal, and I went through it and I read every single one, found every person I knew on it. It was roughly 120 names on it. And I called or reached out to every single one of them and was like, hey, I'm going to do this and this is what we're planning to do. And without hesitation, these guys were like, what do I need to do? Where do I need to sign up? Where do we have to go? One of my favorite ones was one of our neighbors is a giant Trump supporter, like Trump bumper sticker across his front door. And I went there and met with him, and we had a glass of wine and a cigar, and we talked for a little while. And we got done. He goes, okay, so where do I have to go to register Democrat? And I was like, I was just trying to get in your mind, like insight into his brain. And like, he's an awesome guy. He's a combat veteran, and he was with us since day one, and it's been great. Like, and we've had that repertoire with a lot of people because we can go across lines because it's not really about lines, it's about the people, the community. So we're not trying to be Republican, Democrat. Everyone in this room lives in a very close bubble, and we have a lot of the same problems in our neighborhoods and a lot of the same issues we want worked out. And if we work past these lines, we can do better things. We can't let them divide us. They keep drawing lines in the sand. The more lines in the sand, the less united we are. When we're united, we're going to do great things.
And don't you think sometimes that those lines in the sand are purposefully there?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's what's the song? There's an old song, if the kids are united, they'll never be divided. That's the meaning of this. Like, if we work together, we can do whatever we want to do. That's how this structure is all structured. Democracy is made so that if we want to do something and we all get on the same page and we all vote for it, it happens. And we have to get back to that and take it away from like corporate interests or political agenda and just put it back to being about the people.
I think also what you're saying too, like, speaks to trust. I think that when people like know you outside of a political kind of way, they can trust you in a way that they can't trust other people.
Well, I think it's also like part being in a bartending status for so long. Anybody here who's ever been behind the bar, you're the shoulder to cry on. You're the ears of the community. You hear what you get. You're involved with so many people. They show you when their kids graduate high school, or when they reach communion, or if they don't like the representation, or if they hate the sports team. It's like you get to bring all that in, and it gives you this like conscious of where you are, because you get to understand more about the community than a normal person would.
Yeah. A certain humanity too is shared when you start doing that stuff.
You get to build these interpersonal relationships that they span everywhere, socioeconomic or just color or creed or religion. There is none. Like when you're sitting there talking, it's just two people having a conversation.
Well, speaking of being a bartender, I think a lot of people dismiss your candidacy because you are a bartender. And I think that that's really foolish, especially because if the last election taught us anything, it's that anybody can win. And I'm wondering, this district was won by Donald Trump, and I wonder do you think your lack of political experience is actually an asset in a district like this?
Well, I think it helps a lot. Like, I have a great political background of like mindset and reading. I don't have any actual elections that I've ever run or won in, but are we really happy with most of the people that have been running and winning? Have they been doing the great things that we want them to do? Or is it time to initiate change? Like, if you want to see change, you're going to have to change the way you act. You're going to have to change the way you think, change the way you vote. And then you'll see the change that you want. But if we keep electing the same people same stances, same over and over again. It's going to be the same result over and over again.
Can we talk about the Trump election for a second?
Sure.
Do you have any observations or feelings thus far about the Trump presidency?
It's interesting. It's definitely it's to put it to a short. I see a lot of ugliness come out of it, which I don't really believe we have out here. Like, I don't see what we're seeing nationally. Like a lot of the stuff like that we saw in the South and with the statues and the hard right guys showing up with the tiki torches. Like, that's not America. That's ugliness. That's just this racial divide that they're trying to create to keep us apart. And we need to fight things like that. And we need to look to bring what brings us together and unifying more than dividing. And the other thing, like, I see is that, like, I kind of equated to somebody getting a sandwich. They were sold a really, like, this is going to be the best sandwich you ever had. And the guy's got it, and he takes a bite, and you're like, that's not really a sandwich. You're eating, like, duck poop. And they're going, nope, it's still the best sandwich I've ever had. And then they refuse to put it down. We're like, no, you can put the sandwich down. You can admit the sandwich is not good, and you can come with us. And slowly but surely, I think people are putting the sandwich down. So it's starting to happen.
So let me ask you, if you were elected, would you be a vocal opponent to this president?
Yeah, easily. I'm not a fan. I don't think that he brings anything to the table. His Twitter should be shut down. It's offensive and just awful that this thing exists, that a president is making these statements. I've said it a lot that you need to have even if I don't agree with your policy, have a class and respect for the office, which he does not have. Mm-hmm. I almost feel like he didn't want to win. He was using it, and now he won, and he's stuck there for the next 3 years. So I don't stand with a lot of things, like especially things like the Muslim ban. I'm not a fan of anything that's going to alienate a certain people based off of some stereotype. I'm not a fan of his tax bill because I live in Brookhaven, and it's going to be rough on the middle class, and we have to fight for working people. And until we do, we are working people. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of us here, and if we work together, we can make life better for working people.
So how do you convince the working people who voted for him in this district overwhelmingly that they were wrong or that they should vote for you as a vocal opponent of the president?
Well, first off, I actually work. So, I have jobs. I'm in your tax bracket. I have to go to the same place as you. I have the same issues as you. I still am mad that my cable bill is going up. I'm mad that my electric bill is going up. These aren't issues that he would ever focus on. And for the working people in our district, these are huge issues to us. We need to make sure that we have living wages. We need to make sure that young families are able to stay on Long Island and actually flourish instead of living in shacks and in bad neighborhoods. There's a lot that needs to be done in this community, especially if we're going to step it up so it's better for everybody.
Yeah, you are a working person, and another thing that stuck with me after our conversation was when we talked about your bartending. You kind of flipped it on me, and you said, I'm not just a bartender, I'm somebody who's worked their whole life in service. And
yeah.
I really liked that. There's actually this great quote in one of my favorite movies, Thelma and Louise, whereupon a waitress is being interviewed by a detective about a murder, and he questions her as to why she can know for sure that these people didn't do it. And she says, if waiting tables in a bar doesn't make you an expert on human nature, then nothing will. And I really love that.
It's true.
What have you learned about people and human nature over the course of your professional career that will make you a good congressman?
Well, I think when you look at just the average person that you deal with, it's in our business, it's really crazy because you can usually make an assessment in a couple seconds of looking at somebody and being like, okay, well, this person's going to come in here, they're going to do this, you're going to do this, and a lot of times it's initiative, what do you call it? Intuition, that's it. It's an intuition that you have, but you also deal with people from across the board. So I have friends that are Muslim, I have friends that are black, I have friends that are white, I have friends that are Spanish, and at the core we're all the same. There's no difference. We all want the same things. We always want our families to have good lives. We want to have fun. We don't want to work our fingers to the bone. We want to just, we want it to work for everybody, and a lot of people don't feel that the system works for us right now.
Can you talk a little bit about the undocumented workers that you worked with in the restaurants? Oh,
I worked with a lot over the years, and they were hardworking people. Some of them are still good friends of mine, and it's just a travesty that people are saying things like oh, they're murderers, they're rapists, they're this. A lot of these guys aren't. A lot of these guys came here to get their families into a better situation, to make money, to help themselves at home. They're in countries that we couldn't even imagine living in squalor that we couldn't even imagine, and they're working here to just get that little bit of the American dream, which they're trying to get. And we need to make things better for them, and we need to make things attainable for them. But at the same time, we could do it to help it for us. Like, I'm somebody who supports a tax ID number for the undocumented. Get everybody in the system, start there. And so that way everybody can live without fear, they can live without being in the shadows, they can get a driver's license, they can get car insurance, they can rent rentals that aren't these illegal 20-person to a house rentals with these slumlords that are killing these guys. And kind of like flatten the deck to be like, okay, hey, we're gonna let you come, we're gonna let you work, we're gonna let you drive, we're gonna give you the tools you need to succeed. Now let's go 5 years down the road and they go, hey John, you've been here for a long time and your business is good, you made a lot of money, you paid your taxes, no violent offenses, let's talk about citizenship. Let's talk about permanent residency. Let's get you in and fast forward it and get people into the system. Because having a ton of people outside the system is not helping anybody. And we're not going to build a wall and throw everybody out. That's not going to happen. It's not feasible. It's not anything that can happen.
Do you find that when you say these things to people, maybe the ones that were Republicans and then decided to become Democrats to vote for you in the primary, are they responsive to it?
They are, because locally it's common sense. It's revenue to the community that we're losing right now. It's letting people who we're friends with enjoy the same benefits that we have. It's not for any political gain. It's for humanitarianism. It's basically to let this country be the best that it can be for the people that are coming.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me that when it comes from you,
Yeah.
that it's something that people are receptive to, because...
Well, also, you got to realize it's not just like we have this myth that it's Latinos. It's only Latinos. It's not. It's Irish, it's Jamaican, it's Germans, it's Canadians. They're all over the place. People don't realize it, but I mean, I have tons of friends that are, and they would give anything to become citizens in this country. And some of them have been robbed trying to do it. Lawyers take their money and just run away because they have no rights. They can't go after. So we need to make a clear and designated path to keep this alive for everybody.
All right, so you brought up women's intuition before,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a question that I really wanted to ask Kate Browning, and I forgot. I'm going to ask you instead.
Okay, I don't have it though.
Okay. I want to know if you're a feminist, what your definition of feminism is, and what your views of the feminist movement post the 2017 march are. I
am a feminist. I was raised mostly by my mom, and I saw like how hard you have to work to raise two kids to live out here. After the marches, I think it's great because there's a focus on it again, and it's not something that's being like looked at like like it's this march. I'm also married, so like I take orders in my house. So like but you have to be equal. There's equal. Everyone's got to be equal. We have to keep that playing field balanced, and it's when it comes to pay, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to everything. Like the opportunity has to be there for everybody. This is the land of opportunity. So why don't we try to keep it and work for it?
Okay, so let's talk about the issues. Your website boasts supportive, socially progressive platforms, including but not limited to legalizing undocumented individuals, ending the policy of endless warfare, fighting the opioid crisis, implementing a living wage, making healthcare affordable, and reforming education. Supporting a progressive platform on paper is one thing, but our district needs ideas and leadership to implement change and see it through. What would take precedent if you were to win, and how specifically would you work to secure support, funding, and action needed to implement those changes?
Well, we needed that support years ago, so it'd be top priorities to me. Opioids obviously is huge to all of us in this community. Everyone's affected by them. Everyone has dealt with them. I played music for the last 18 years, and our scene has been hit terribly hard by it. It's something that is not new. This is not a hot button. It's a hot button issue now, but this has been something we've been screaming about for 15 years in these communities. So that would be one of the first things that I do, and we need to change the initiative of how we're dealing with it. We're coming up with why it's there, but no one's coming up with a reason to beat it. And one of the big things we have to do is we have to hold big pharmacies accountable. Big pharmaceuticals can't just be putting these pills out in the streets, telling you they're not addictive, and throwing them out there, and then having nothing to do for it after that. You're seeing kids that are 16 years old get prescribed Vicodins or oxycodones for getting their teeth pulled, where that was Tylenol 10 years ago. We need to make sure that there's education in the schools. The kids need to see what it is, and it can't be a cop being there, because that was effective. It's not anymore. They need to see people who have survived through this. They need to know the realism of this epidemic. This is something that you either quit or you die. There's no other option. Those are the two ways. There's no social heroin users. So that's the big step that we need to take, especially with that. And we need funding and we need help. And our representation right now is not helping us. And when it came up, I think it was about 2 years ago, they were trying to get money to help get these houses to help people get clean. And the left was basically yelling they needed more money, and Representative Zeldin just stood silent, and in the long run afterwards, he came out and said, well, in hindsight, maybe we did need more money. Because he's partisan, and you can't be that when it comes to your community. You have to just look at everybody as what they are and the people in your community. And that would be huge. Education reform, too, is huge to me. Our schools have been the same for 100 years. That platform, like of 42 minutes of this, 42 minutes of this, 42 minutes of this, and it doesn't work. We need to start focusing on passions. We need to start focusing on the vocational trades. We need to get kids ready to live. Not just prepare them for higher education, prepare them for higher education, but also the job markets out there. And we need to let them learn and focus on the things they're good at. Why try to fit them in a box when they can bloom if you let them out of it? And that's one of the big things we're going to have to see happen in our education system, or you're going to see the rise of charter schools. I'm a fan of charter schools right now because I think competition breeds initiative. So if you have competition to public education will rise up and be better. And we need to do things like that.
I remember talking to you about this, and it led to a conversation about the role of the federal government and the role of the state government. And at the time, you said that you were more of a fan of state rights and limited federal government role.
Yeah.
Is that still accurate?
With certain things, it depends what it is. Like when it comes to education, 100%. I don't think that people in offices in Washington, D.C. should be telling you how the kids in East Hampton High School should be learning and what they should be focusing on, especially when they haven't been in a classroom in 30 years or for DeVos, never. So we need to get the things that need to be focused on socially and in education and reforms locally. We need to have people that are on the ground that can have says in this. But then there's certain things that we'll have nationally that you have to have the federal government to implement, like the parks departments, for instance. That's something that it's too broad for the United States, for a state to handle. But you also have things like healthcare, which now the big argument you get is, well, we can't do single payer, and I support single payer, but I think single payer needs to start in smaller batches to show people it can work. The states need to have the rights to do it, and in New York State right now, we're trying to get it passed to see it be the first state to show, hey, look, we're a big state, we have huge cities, and we can do it. So that's kind of the balance that I like.
Mm-hmm. I think that whenever we talk about issues like these, we have an opportunity to talk about jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have discussed the reality of our generation not being able to stay here because there are no jobs that support us staying here, or at least very few. Well, at least support the cost of living. What would you do to create more economic opportunity in Congressional District 1?
Well, I think one of the first things that we're going to need out here for young people is we need to create some form of legitimate affordable housing. So you need to look at it and go, okay, well, $400,000 is not affordable. That's affordable compared to the price of a normal house in West Hampton Beach or somewhere else. But your average 22-year-old is not going to come up with that kind of money, especially coming out of college with the amount of debt they have, or car debt or anything, because everything is going to lead to debt right now for someone in that age that's not coming from a good a good bank account behind them. So we need to focus on that. Secondly, one of the big things I think we need to do is we need to focus on green initiatives, renewable energy, things like solar paneling, wind turbines. It's tech that is needed, and the United States is sleeping on it. Other countries around the world are becoming these giant green tech merchants, and we're not doing it. China right now, I think, is the #1 producer of solar paneling in the world. And we're sitting here complaining about how China doesn't pay enough into the Paris Accord, so that's why we're going to leave. Meanwhile, they're going to pass us in all of this. This stuff's the future, it's the present, and we need to focus on it now. And the kids coming out of high school and in college right now, this could be the next big job boom that we could get. And we could start it on Long Island right now. We have places without tearing down forests to build these factories. There's a lot of just run down buildings, run down old factories that we could be putting these places to work again.
So how do you do it?
Oh, we got to get funding first off. That's definitely for sure. And you push it, like I said, with education reform, you push for things like this. You push for vocational training that's going to show kids how to do these things. And when you build that kind of enterprise on Long Island, then all of a sudden you're going to have people moving to the area. One of the biggest things that we had when Southampton College closed was we lost that young generations that were coming into our community. At that time, you would get, it was a small school, maybe 1,000 people in a graduating class. But out of those 1,000 people, a ton of them stayed. There was a good joke for years that said the Southampton Marine Science Program put out the best carpenters on the East End of Long Island. That's where all these guys came from. They all came here to be in the Marine Science Program. They all stayed and became carpenters. But you don't see that anymore out there. That influx of young people into the community is not there because they can't afford to live here, and we lost the draw to keep them here. So we need to show people why you want to come here and why you want to raise your family here and why you want to live here.
Yeah, I think it's all very alluring living here. I just wonder how you attract the jobs so you keep the people.
Well, you gotta also, like, you're gonna have to work with tax breaks, obviously. That'd be one huge way to get people in.
Tell us more about that.
Well, obviously we do it nationally with a lot of corporations, but with us, we could do it with small business, and we don't, like, right now, I think our largest employer in our district is health services, and second is service industry, to put in perspective of job market out here. We need to put into initiatives to get businesses here, lower taxes for them to come in and start up, give them breaks, not forever, but enough to get started, but offer these small businesses what are nationally we're offering corporations. Like, the small business is the backbone of America. We need to make sure that it's strong and we have it, and that's one of the big things you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, as a small business, I could talk forever about that. Trying to get a store out here, anywhere out here, is you have to pay the whole year up front, and it's a lot.
And they all think it's 1988. They charge you like it's the Hamptons when the Hamptons were a line for 4 days to get out here.
Okay, so as a political outsider, how do you intend to navigate the divisive political antics of Congress if elected, and be an effective representative for our district?
I think it's a start. I think someone like me getting elected is a start. You see around the country, there's Randy Bryce is one who's big. He's another guy. He's an iron worker who's running against Paul Ryan, and he's going to win. He's going to knock him out. There's a couple guys out in Arizona that are running, that are young guys that have no background, and they're going into it. And this is the cause and effect of ineffective representation. That you're now, people that are so sick of it are standing up and going, no, you know what, I can do better than this, and I'm going to show you that I can do better than that. And I think the more that this goes, you're going to see more and more of these dinosaurs start falling. And you're going to see more younger and more energetic and more open people start getting in. Because people aren't happy with the direction of our country. Like, no one, like, you see it on the TV, you see the news or the fake news, depending on what you're watching, and it's ugly, and no one can be happy with that. I'm not, I know that. I know the people in this room aren't, and there's a lot more of us. And we need to get together and realize, these guys, they're not there for life. We don't want them, they're gone. And all we have to do is show up. And that's one of the hardest things apparently right now, is just getting everybody to show up. But it's getting better, and it's gonna get better.
I agree. I think the voter turnout is going to be what's going to get a Democrat elected in the next election. But we have a lot to go up against, and money is a big issue.
I look at money too, I don't like money. I don't think money should be in politics. I don't think PACs should exist. I don't think super PACs should exist. I think it should be capped. I think that spending should be capped on everything, whether it's a primary, whether it's an actual general election. There should be caps on it, and there should be limits. And when you have those limits, if you exceed those limits, that money should be invested back in your community. Because what this is to represent your community. It's not, that's the whole basis of this job. Is like, okay, I want to be the voice of the people in my community. Okay, so you got $50,000 to get your chance elected. Okay, well, I raised 70. Okay, well, we're going to give 20 to Little Flower, the orphanage. We're going to donate this money to here and help people. Like, the role of government is supposed to be to help people. So why? I don't know how we've strayed so far away, but we're trying to bring it back in a little bit closer every day.
I don't know how either, but considering that we are operating in the next year with, a Citizens United decision, you have a formidable opponent in Lee Zeldin, who is backed by big money. Speaking of divisive political antics, you have an opponent in Lee Zeldin.
Oh.
How do you intend to compete with him?
Well, if I get there, definitely, it's one thing you have to look at is he has this giant war chest, because he'd rather have $1,000 plate dinners in Manhattan than actually talk to any of us. I live 5 minutes from him. I've never seen him ever. And I've ran into Chuck Schumer. And I was like, oh, hey, Chuck Schumer's here. And I've never seen Lee Zeldin. I've seen Tim Bishop 100 times, never seen Lee Zeldin. And we have to look at it this way. He can have all the money in the world. He's a terrible representative. Terrible. The right thinks so, the left thinks so. You have the old guard who are going to vote Republican because they vote Republican. Luckily, we can reach across and sway the younger group and be like, hey, listen, you cannot be happy with what this guy's doing. With that tax bill, instead of filibustering, he stood there and goes, I don't like it. I go, I would have played every song I know to play on guitar and read the Odyssey. I'd have been sitting there and go, this is never going through. I hope you guys are comfortable. Like, we need action. We don't need somebody who's going to pander to our votes when he thinks he needs to. And, or somebody who's scared to talk to the people of his community. If you're scared to talk to people in your community, you're doing a horrible job. Because you shouldn't be that scared. Like, you look back at, with Tim Bishop, when he was our congressman, and that was like the height of the Tea Party craziness. And he walked into those rooms by himself. And he got torn to shreds by these people. Zeldin shows up to like a fundraiser on Meadow Lane with 2 security guards.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, what do you need security guards for? That's a house I will never go in unless I work at it. That is the only chance you'll ever see me doing it. And he'll bring bodyguards with him.
I know, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, okay, so we'll move on from Lee Zeldin.
No worries.
We have 6 Democrats that have thrown their hats into the ring to be the Democratic nominee. Many are worried that a primary would be a surefire way to lose the election, considering no Democrat that was ever primaried in this district has gone on to win. What are your thoughts and feelings about the primary that's going to happen?
I love primaries. I think they're awesome. I think it's democracy at work. This is where you get your chance to talk and see every person, like you'll see here. Everyone's going to come in here, everyone's going to talk to you. And it gives you choice. We need choice. We cannot have someone forced down our throats. It's not going to work. You need to keep people united, you keep people happy. If we let due process happen and we get to the end of it and everyone backs everybody, I think we're going to have an easy chance at this. And like, it's going to be tough, but like I said, this is a representative who is not a representative. He's out for his own political gain. And we have 6 people who stood up, and possibly there's even a 7th, I've heard now, and want to stand up and do the right thing. And I think it's wonderful that all these people have shown that initiative.
Will you fully support whoever the nominee ends up being?
Yes, yes.
And will you campaign fully for them?
I will be campaigning for him too.
Well, speaking of campaigning and doing things for candidates, 2017 has seen a swell in grassroots activism. On your Facebook page, the first adjective you used to describe yourself is organizer. What or who have you organized, and can you speak to some of the things that you've accomplished?
Yep. Well, the biggest organization I do is the Cabin Fever Music Festival, which is going to its 11th year this year. It's local artists, local musicians, we do local clothing companies, whatever wants to get involved with us every year. If you've ever tried to organize 23 bands of musicians, you can organize anything in the world. Like, drummers live in their own time zones. They have this thing where there's no sense of reality. So like that has been a huge organizational thing for me that showed me like the patience of dealing and working, outreaching with the community, because we've done a lot of work with the community too. Like a lot of times we do events that are off the season. We just recently did one for Puerto Rico after the hurricane. We did one for the Heart of the Hamptons food pantry. So we're constantly trying to do something to help out around here and like get involved. We've done fundraisers for people that we knew from the industry that had sicknesses or needed help for medical funds. And those kind of things make you see the humanity out here, like where you get to see how everybody is and how everybody really is all from the same cloth. And we need to, like I keep saying it, but like unity is going to be how we're going to win. We have to get everybody together. It can't be the line in the sand and we're fighting over it. Like we have to get everybody on the same side.
Have you had any relationships with other grassroots groups out here?
Like political groups,
Yeah.
or I've had like talks with them, but never like a huge lock-in with them. There's been a huge rise of them, obviously, since Trump got elected, and like we've reached out. Like your group was one, and a couple others like Peer and a few others that I follow now and I listen to, and it's great. It's awesome to see so many people wanting to get involved, because you know what, 8 years ago it wasn't there. And now we're starting to see it, and it sucks that it took such a bad thing to happen to get everybody moving, but it's awesome that everybody's moving, like, you know.
And when you look at like these grassroots groups, there's very few people who are under 40 years old.
No.
So what's that about?
Well, there's very few people who are under 40 years old who live out here. You know that.
This is true.
I say it all
But
the
we
time.
are here.
Yeah,
There's some of us.
But it's people work, people have lives, people have kids, especially like in the 25 to 40 range. You know, you work 8 to 12 hours a day. You go home and you're going to get 4 hours to see your kid, and that you're going to take those 4 hours rather than anything, because that's the most important thing you need to do. So you have a lot of people that won't do that, or you have people working 2 jobs where they're going home for a couple hours and they go right back out because they're trying to afford this house. And that all goes back to, we need to find ways to make it affordable to live here for these young people. We need to get them actual living wages, and we need to make life more accessible for them so that they can become involved in things like this. And it can't just be a passion. They could be something they can do all the time.
Yeah. Well, my next question was, how do you get people more involved?
I think
Young people more involved.
one of the good things that we've done is we have a lot of young people involved with us, like a lot of young people supporting us and are happy about it. And you have to stray away from what we've been doing. You can't just keep forcing the same thing down the pipe. We have to go with different ideas. Was it the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? So we need to start thinking outside the box. We need to start taking people from different facets of life and putting them into this and letting them get a shot at it, rather than the politician or the lawyer or whatever. It's always the same. Like, we need to go different ways. We need to have the baker and the bartender. And I tell you, if you had more bartenders and bakers in Congress, things would be a lot smoother. You know? It's true.
Have you noticed that a lot of people have been coming out of the woodwork to try to be part of your campaign? Who makes up your campaign?
Right now, we do, like, basically, if you write to our campaign, I answer you. I try to keep it as transparent as possible. Sometimes I get back to you in a day, sometimes I get back to you in like 2 minutes if I'm home and I'm messing around on the computer at home. We've had a lot of people reaching out, but like I've said, with jobs and school and all this stuff, it's hard. And I appreciate what everyone's doing. I have a lot of people that offer a lot of online support. Right now, we have over 1,300 people following us. We have over 1,200 and change Facebook people. And they share it constantly. I see, like, it'll come up on my page. It'll be like, oh, you should go check out this. Go check out this, like this page. And that's the new way that these people are socializing, where we used to go out and, like, hang out at a bar or at a restaurant or at a skate park. Now, this is how it happens. And I'm seeing it, though, and it's going around. And that's good, because if they can just take that and take it to the voting booth, we'll be doing awesome.
How do you get people to get to the voting booth?
One of the things I want it to be a national holiday. It should be. Should be off. Everyone should be off from work. Everyone should be off from school. Everyone should have the ability to go there. They should make it accessible. There should be more polling places, not less. And everyone, it's the duty of you for being American to do it. Like I voted in every election since I've been old enough. I was excited to do it. This last one was a little hard, but I was like, the next morning. But everyone needs to go out there and no matter what your idea is, even if you want to vote for Mickey Mouse, vote for Mickey Mouse. At least exercise the opinion that you have it. A lot of people die for this right. Enjoy it while you still can. The Fuhrer up there, he might change it soon on you. You never know.
We're definitely going to need people to come out for this next election, and I hope that we can. And I know a lot of people here have questions for you tonight.
Cool.
We kind of jumped all over on a lot of different things, so if anybody wants to follow up on any of my questions or has questions of their own, we can go ahead and ask them now. Barbara.
Yeah, I'm intrigued about the number of young people that you're in contact, your friends and people that you know, because this is a huge issue, getting millennials, Generation X, getting people to register and to vote.
Yeah.
My son is 25, so
Okay.
I know it's a tough age. They have huge student debt. It's really hard. Among the people you know in their late 20s, 30s, what is the most important issue for them? Is it healthcare? Is it the environment? What would you say?
Well, the ones that are under
key thing?
27, they're not worried about healthcare yet because they're still on healthcare and they haven't experienced the really non-affordable healthcare that we have right now.
26.
Yeah. And but like a lot of them, student debt is huge. And one of the things that I want to get rid of is the high interest student loans. Like it's our money. It shouldn't be lent to us at a higher rate than houses are lent to people. So we need to get that back and cut it down to nothing. We need to have affordable schools and free state schools. Like this is investment in our community. This is investment in our country. So I think that would be huge to get people involved. For the young people now, one of the big things that happened last election, especially during the primary, you saw it, a lot of people came out and they said there was this conspiracy. They went there, I registered Democrat and I wasn't able to vote. It's because they make these dates hidden from you. Like if you want to vote in this primary, you had to have been registered Democrat by October 14th for the next year. And that wasn't put out there. We put it out there a lot, and that's how we got all the people to change. But that wasn't something you heard the last election. And we need to make sure that the parties know that, like, if you want people to be involved, you have to welcome them. You have to want them to be here. And hiding dates and changing registrations and moving lines of voting districts, like, that can't happen anymore. It's got to all be done legit, by the books, clear out in the open. Because then you get people who resent it and come up with conspiracy theories of why they couldn't vote. And now you've just disenfranchised that person from voting. And they probably didn't vote in the last election after that happened. So we need to get lines clear. We need to have dates set and maybe even open elections. Like get rid of the lines. Just be like, hey, you want to vote? Come vote. Like find a way to encourage them to get here. But like I said, with a lot of the people that I've dealt with, they're college graduates who are musicians, who are in their
Right.
mid-20s and artists. And they're like the definition of starving artists. And I'm seeing things now like people are coming together, like 3 or 4 people, and buying a house because they can't afford to do it by themselves. And we need to be able to have these people cultivate their art and be able to go out and do it without crippling debt and make it so that they're available to come out to the polls and do things like that rather than work 14 hours a day.
I mean, could the student loan rate, which is like 8%, it's ridiculous,
insane.
can that be changed by congressional legislation? I mean, is that something you could
when there
focus
was
on?
when there was the government shutdown years ago, my interest on my loans for my graduate school were at 2.3%, and the government shut down. And I got a bill for 6.9%. So obviously, yes, they can change the rates of those whenever they want. They don't do it in a good way, but it jumped. So they tripled my interest rate. I had nothing to do with the government shutting down. I wasn't there. I didn't do anything with it. But that was what they saw fit was something that they could do, was punish students with their loans, which doesn't make sense. So we could pass laws. We can make things that especially on the local level, like we have in New York right now, where they're trying to make tuition-free state schools, I think right now, or at least to some extent, which is awesome, because that couple $1,000s is huge. I'm 37 years old. I still owe $6,000 on my undergrad, and I pay it off way over every month trying to do it. And you're creating like generations of indentured servants that are slaving to this bill that they're going to have to pay, and they're going to have to pay. Now I got my degree, and now here I am, almost 2 decades later, and I'm going to still be paying it off. Like, you know, and you need to allow that room for creative growth and for living. It's scary to know that you won't see financial freedom until you're in your 40s or 50s from this. And I was lucky. I had a lot of scholarships. I paid off a lot of my debt, and I'm still here.
Wendy?
So you don't have a campaign manager, you're running your own?
No, we do, like, Kyle works with us there, to be clear. We'll let him know that. And we work together. We work as a group. We have guys involved. There's a team. And we kind of bounce ideas off each other, and we do it as it's a little different approach, but I feel it works because it's not just the same political rhetoric that's being spoken. Like, it's not a professional, it's not someone who's done this for a living. It's people from the community who actually have concerns and roots and beliefs for here.
And you're going to stay with that? You're staying with a non-professional
For yes, I think it's to go up against the ultimate professional, you should go with the most opposite way you could be, and I think it reaches people, and it's more comforting to know that when you reach out, you're not going to get some staffer who's going to yell at you or hang up on you. You're going to reach one of us who's going to talk to you and be ready to address it.
Guys, is that just a figure of speech?
Yeah, there's women, there's guys, yeah.
I know you said you hated Monday, but just to follow up on this conversation about not having a campaign manager, you're going to need a significant amount of money to win this election.
Yeah.
What's your approach to fundraising? And are you finding that the community that is supporting you with your help with your campaign is also supporting you financially?
Yeah, we have hundreds of donors. So we get small donations because we get them from working people. These aren't people who are corporate finance people. We don't have bankers that are throwing thousands of dollars at us. And it's good, and it's clear, and we don't go crazy spending money. Like, I know a lot of people have spent a ton of money so far. We've spent, I think, $6,000 so far. Because we're doing it by word of mouth, and we're meeting people, and we're talking, and we want to be involved with the community. We want to see people. I think one of the greatest faults that we had the last election against him was that they spent too much time trying to fundraise and not enough time talking and finding out what was the matter with the community. We need to put the focus back on policy. We need to put the focus back on the realism of the problems that we have. And the first question people can't have for you is, like, you meet people and they're like, well, how much money can you raise? And it's like, do you want to know anything about what I'm running on first, or is it just going to be this question? So we figure when we get there, we'll get there. When we win the primary, we're going to have a united front. We're going to have a lot of funds that come in, and I think that's how it's going to have to happen.
And you know, talking about fundraising and all,
Yep.
you're going to really need somebody who knows the laws.
Yes.
ins
No.
and outs, so you're going to have to
Right now,
have somebody.
I've filed my own paperwork so far.
Right, but
Which
that's
has been,
easy.
yeah, that's the easy part. Like, doing it. When we get to that point, we will.
Yeah, okay.
Like, when it comes to fundraising, because, like,
You
obviously
don't wanna
none of
get in
us are
trouble.
financial people. But when we cross that bridge, we'll get to it.
Okay.
Right now, we handle our own fundraising. We do light events, like we do like meet and greets. We do we had a barbecue, which was fun. I'm a vegetarian, but I had a great time. And like we had but we brought in local guys, and it was all donated locally from communities. It was cool. It was really, and like that's how we've been reaching out, is just trying to keep the pulse, like keep knowing what's going on, rather than walking away and not paying attention, which we see happen in a lot of elections out here.
Feminist vegetarian.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
I really admire your enthusiasm and your determination, and you're young, and I think that's really important. I guess my concern for you would be, how do you think you would prepare to go, say, head-to-head in a debate with Lee Zeldin, who is so savvy and has so many years behind him? You know, you're young. I mean, how do you get up there?
We're the same age, me and Lee Zeldin.
Oh, really?
I'm way pretty. That's all the only. No, you know, when it comes down to it, his job record will speak for itself, and it does. And when you get in conversation with people in the community, it comes out hard that no one is happy with him across the board. So it's not more about how you're going to take him down; it's how you're going to show what you're going to do. So we don't need to take him down. He's going to be his pedestal is already fallen. His alignment with Bannon, his alignment with Trump, his alignment with all this stuff. Like now that Uncle Steve and Uncle Donald are fighting, where's he going to go? We don't know what side he's going to take. We need to just stick to the path of doing the right thing for the community, fighting for what we want, and making sure that it's a united message for everybody.
Bill?
Brendon, a massive tax bill just passed that everyone here knows is going to hurt Long Island. We know that years from now, they're going to try and pay for it by attacking Social Security and Medicare, which the Republicans refer to as entitlements. What I never hear anybody say on either side of the aisle is how much money has been taken out of Social Security to pay for other things. We always manage to find the money for wars. We always manage to find the money to build part of Trump's wall. Why isn't anybody saying, can we please put this money back into Social Security and make it viable again?
Well, that's the crazy thing is that when they call it entitlement programs, I don't know how paying for something your whole life to get it back is entitlement,
Right.
since you've been taxed and paying it your whole life. But I'm anti-war. I'm anti-violence. I think diplomacy is a great tool that we should be using. I don't think that we should be a force of war and death. We should be a force of humanitarianism. We're not creating allies anymore. We're creating enemies, and we're creating terrorist groups, and we're creating this by being involved. I'm someone who's always said that we should cut the military budget, and that should be one of the things that happens. And if we need to reinvest in Social Security through the military budget, so be it. If our infrastructure needs to be fixed and we need to find the money for it, there's a large chunk of money that can be taken from that. People tend to confuse that the military budget means that the pay for the military. It's not. The military gets paid the same. They don't increase their pay. One of my friends was telling me, he was a ranger, that they work 24-hour days, obviously, when they're there, and he told me it worked out to being about $1.39 an hour that he was at work. That's insanity. Like, we're sending these people to die, and that's what we're giving them. So we need to retool how we're operating in the world, and we need to make sure that we're investing in our future and in our past. Like, we need to make sure that Social Security is there. It's a safety net for everybody. It ensures a greater quality of life.
So what we understand about the budget too is that if you're gonna put money someplace, you need to take money from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So the military was a place that you just said we could take money from. Is there any other area that you would either tax or take money from?
Well, obviously, like I'm not a huge fan of the corporate cuts because it doesn't do much for Long Island. We're not a huge corporate. We're not corporate owned. We don't have a lot of corporate jobs. Like, a lot of our stuff is locally done. But the military is enough. Honestly, if you look at the pie budget, I always love when people start yelling about welfare, and I'm like, yelling about welfare and supporting that budget for the military is like your wife went out to the supermarket, bought 57 filet mignons and a Snickers bar, and you got mad that she bought a Snickers bar. like that's the size that it is in comparison. We need to start focusing on the realism of what it is, and not letting party lines dictate what we're mad about or why we're mad about it.
Any other questions for Brendon tonight?
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for coming. We
Thank you for
appreciate your time to speak with us. And is there anything that you can tell us that we'd be surprised to know about you?
I'm probably the only congressional candidate that can play a Johnny Cash song on a guitar. I'm also not very good at video games for my generation, which is hard to do. I'm just pretty much your average guy. I mow my own lawn. I shoveled out my own driveway the other day. I don't live behind fences or gates. I'm very accessible, and I enjoy it. I like people. I like being around people. I've had my whole life. I've been, like I said, I've been playing music for 18, 19 years now. Bartending for, way too long, 16, 17 years.
When can we see you play?
It was Cabin Fever. If you guys want to come out, you can see me play Cabin Fever. We're going to do a show at Cowfish, an acoustic show, and we're going to try to do something there, so that would be kind of cool. We'd like to support the local businesses out here. But yeah, I think that's like probably the most surprising thing. I can cook a little bit too.
I've just noticed you're talking a lot about out here.
Yeah.
Suffolk County is huge.
It is.
How are you planning on dealing with the rest of Suffolk County?
I am currently, as far as I understand, the only candidate born and raised on Long Island. Out of everyone that's running, I'm the only one. I'm the only one who spent my entire life out here. And when I play shows, I didn't play them all out east. I played them all out west. I played the Paramount. I played the Emporium. I played bars in West Babylon that you wouldn't admit you ever went in. Like, that's the kind of place we played. Yeah, I've been in a few of them. But we've been around and we talked, and I've met these same people that are just like us, but they're out there. And I live in Brookhaven
Only because
currently.
it seemed like you were saying out here, meaning the East End, as opposed to.
I consider
that's what it
us
that's
is
how
out
it's-
here. Like,
the
yeah,
entire
our district's
county.
out here. You know what I mean? Like, you know, compared to most places. It depends where you are in our district. If you live in East Hampton, you'd call the city, Riverhead the city.
Right.
Like a lot of my friends from Southampton don't cross the canal. So like, but I live in Brookhaven, that's where I live now, and I've been living there for a few years, and I have established relationships out in Brookhaven.
This congressional district is Brookhaven East, right?
No, it goes a little further than Brookhaven.
Goes to Smithtown.
Smithtown, Setauket, yep, and Patchogue on the south.
I'm in Setauket.
Yep. So it's a big district. It's sparsely populated in certain areas, which is why it's so big. But at our core, we are all have the same kind of wants and needs out here. All the same local and national things are affecting all of us, whether it's in Patchogue or whether it's in East Setauket or whether it's in Greenport. Like we see it, and it's all the same. And we just need to start focusing on like uniting that front, like that we need to make it better in this district for us.
Nancy?
So of course my big thing is healthcare because my husband and I are freelance and have had to pay for our own. So we got something at the 11th hour through Fidel's Care, which has been typically, I think, like a Medicaid kind of offering. But this year they seem to do a little bit better because some of the other, like Empire Blue Cross, has basically jumped out of it. You can tell they don't want to be a part of it. So here's my question. How are you prepared to go to Washington and you have a clear head, you know what the people that your constituents want, what they need, but are you prepared for the antics that go on behind closed doors where they put the screws to you? Because somehow they flipped Susan Collins, she just walked away from the people of Maine. People that have been clear-headed and supportive of their people all this time, they're flipping. So something went on behind closed doors. Are you prepared for that?
They have an end game. Like I don't have. This isn't a career change for me. I'm not going. Okay, well I'm going to run for Congress. Then in 4 years I'm going to run for Senate, and then in 4 years I'm going to run for president. The reason I'm running is because I'm upset with the way it is out here, and I've worked in industries where there's people putting screws to you all the time, and I've always stood my ground. My jobs, I've had them. In 17 years of working, I was never fired, never had an issue. And I look at things that you have to do this the right way, and you have to go in it the right way, and maybe you have to be the first person to stand up. I'm not scared to be the first person to stand up.
And are you prepared to somehow you're going to have to compromise and something gets tacked onto a bill at the last second that you're not happy with?
Well,
it's gonna be all in black and white. Okay. Brendon voted yes on this, and
you have to look at how they're doing this too. The whole add-ons needs to be addressed, and that's something that does need to be addressed by Congress. That you'll have a great bill, and then they'll stick this one thing on the end where you're going, oh, I can't vote for it because like this is here. They need to make it that bills can't be they can't do that. We need to have it so that a clean bill can be addressed, put in, and voted on, and take the game away, because the game's not working for any of us.
just yesterday, day before, in the press conference when Nancy Pelosi said, can't we just do this one thing for DACA and have it a clean bill? And the president was saying, yeah, I think we can do that. And then you hear these little voices go, well, I don't have any, sir, I don't think we can do that.
We need greater transparency, obviously.
It was Feinstein.
Fine.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
Feinstein, yes,
We-
thank corrected. Yeah.
We need to fight for that. Transparency needs to happen. I think, what was it, like 6 or 7 years ago, the Monsanto Protection Act was put in anonymously. How does a bill get introduced anonymously? Like, no one saw it, somebody just dropped it on a desk and there it was. Like, that can't happen. So I think the more people you see that are real, true grassroots people from your community that are gonna go, they're not gonna put up with it because they're sick of it, and that's why they're there. And the more people you see that are putting up with it, I think you're gonna start seeing them out the door. And hopefully that's what I really hope is gonna happen. And the more involvement we get, the better the chances of that happening are.
All right, I'm gonna go to Cindy.
Hi. You said that they need to change it so you can't have something tacked on to the head. How would you change that?
Well, you'd have to obviously initiate a bill to make it happen, and you'd have to get the popular support of everybody to do it. But if you put that in public view and make it transparent, so they have, when they, like, more so than it is now, being like, hey, you're gonna have to go explain to your community why you think that we shouldn't do this, why we can't have clean bills to be voted on.
I mean, first of all, I'm not even sure that's the bill. Maybe it could be, but mostly that's the rules of the House or whatever.
Yeah, they can be amended as you, like, over votes, but I mean, you know, they haven't been in years.
But you put in a bill, there's lots of bills put in that go nowhere.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to push hard and work for them. Be loud about it.
Sharon, and then I'll go to you, sir, Frank.
I just wanted to know, because I don't know if this has been touched on at all.